Episode of No Gatekeeping. We have extended this from our summer series right into the fall because we feel like there's so much information to share. So this is called Welcome to No Gatekeeping, the Founders Series. I'm Carlyn Bushman, sales strategist, business consultant, and founder of Pop Academy. This is where we go behind the scenes with the real founders about what actually it takes to grow a business. No fluff, no filters, no gatekeeping. Today, we're diving into something every founder faces, but few actually talk about. What happens when life gets messy? No one better to talk to us about this than Rebekah. And how do you keep leading a business when your personal world is in a state of flux? Do you manage those challenges, or is there a different way forward? Oof, I can't wait to hear this advice. So to unpack this, I'm joined by the Rebekah Hogan, who helps ambitious visionaries master their energy and that inner voice to manifest with power and the so wonderful word ease. Rebekah Hogan helps ambitious visionaries live lives they effing love. Love it when I can say that. By mastering their energy and inner voice to manifest with power and ease. She dismantles the myths of manifestation and teaches the real work, aligning your inner world so you become the magnetic AF to the life you're meant for. No hustle, no fluff, just that beautiful embodied transformation. Rebekah, it's always so wonderful to be with you online, in person, and for all of our audience now, for you to share your information. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Carlyn. It is always amazing to be in a room with you in person and on Zoom. I absolutely love your energy and love how you show up for other people, helping them show up. So I'm just glad to be here.
Thank you. And for all of those who are joining us today, feel free to drop anything in the chat. We are happy to also answer any of your questions. So I want to just dive right in, as I do. Usually that's the no fluff of me as well. When you say manifestation isn't about fluff, right? This is such a big word. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to manifest. I'm going to live a life of abundance. I'm going to want all this thing. It's really about alignment. And how has that played out for you when life and business can get messy at the same time?
Well, I mean, I think that actually should be the definition of life is messiness. It's always kind of messy. I mean, and so it's really a matter of how do you flow through it instead of resisting it. Because I think that so much of it, the hard of the messy, like it's messy, right? You have kids, they're messy, but they're still fun. There's still so much joy and love and connection in it. So it's not messy is not a bad thing until you deem it as a bad thing. And this is why we talk about the inner voice, right? Is because it's what you say about things that creates the energy in your body that creates the resistance that then makes things hard. And so it's always messy. And so it's really, that's where we go into alignment of how do you get your energy in alignment in the midst of all of it so that you can flow in it.
So I know you're great at storytelling, and I love that about you. But can you give me an example? That all sounds so nice. Immediately my shoulders drop, I breathe a little better. But can you walk us through, do you have a story where you've actually seen this work or not work?
So, I mean, I'm living this right now. I'm here in an Airbnb because my house is being remodeled right now. And if I turn my camera a little bit this way, you'll see that there's a second desk set up for my husband. And I'm having to share space with him as we're in a place that is not our own space. And I'm still, creating and I'm building and I'm moving through it. And we travel a lot. We have 2 homes. And so he's overseeing some construction projects and stuff at our home in Maui. And I'm here overseeing the construction here in Arizona. And so midday, I might get a phone call that I need to run over and go take a look at something and make a decision about the house. when he's in town, I've got to share my space with him. And then we've got to figure out how do we both deal with our calls and energy, right? Because he brings his energy into the room, I bring my energy into the room. How do we share the space? How do we share the energy? And how do we keep building what we're building? And how do you make it look easy? Right. And because this is the part that people get caught up in, making it look easy, but it's how do you make it feel easy? And
So, how do you make it feel easy?
There's a word that has been resonating for me lately, and it came up on our FYI call yesterday, was unbothered. It's being, and this is where the alignment comes in, it's being intentional about where you allow yourself to invest your energy, because stuff's going to come up. The only reason why it pulls us away is how much energy we choose to invest in it. And I use the word choose, and I am very aware that most of us don't realize that we're choosing to invest our energy. It's a circumstance that is happening around us, to us, and we don't realize that we're actually choosing how we invest our energy. And so if you were to ask me, I want to, if we can, go back a minute to, you talked about manifesting being a big word and talking about the no fluff. And here's what I want to say about manifesting. It's just a fancy word for creating. That's all it is. It's a fancy word for what am I creating in my life today? And so we're all manifesting all the time. And what we know is, like, we love being in rooms with people that have great energy, right? So energy attracts energy. And also, whenever we're in a not amazing mood, right, all of a sudden everything around us starts like mirroring back what mood we're in. And we start, our attention focuses on those things. And so if we understand that our thoughts create our energy and our energy attracts other energy, the key is to focus on how do you change your thoughts around situations. And so the tool that gets me through is one question. It is the most simple question in the world. How do I want to feel?
I love that. I love that you dropped in and just gave us that one question.
Yeah, it's that simple. How do I want to feel? Because in the middle of a hard conversation, if we, I can't remember if it was, I think, now I'm gonna, Wayne Dyer, I think maybe it might be Wayne Dyer says, I'm not sure who says it, but there's a quote that says, begin with the end in mind. Might be Jack Canfield. Anyway, begin with the end in mind. How do I want to feel? Because as founders, we create these big missions, we create these big visions, and we want to do all of these things to help people and to create something amazing in the world. At the end of the day, why do we want to do it?
What if we don't know? What if we don't know why we want to do it?
Most people don't. Most people don't know why they set the goal. They just know that the goal feels good when they think about it. And so this is the key. And this is where, you say, like, I unpack the fluff, is because the goal is just a symbol. It's what your brain knows. Like, if I create this, I will feel this way. So your brain on a less than conscious level says, hey, this is something that you're capable of doing with what you already have, right? There's that saying about that God won't give you anything that you can't handle. Like, your brain won't set a goal that you can't handle, first of all, because it wouldn't know to set the goal if it didn't already know that you understand the goal. So the goal is a way that your brain has a symbol to say, I can achieve this thing that's going to allow me to feel this way. It's a symbol for a feeling. Most of the time, we push through the hard and the messy, and we sit in the emotions of what we're feeling in that, trying to reach the goal, not realizing that the goal is just the symbol of the emotion that I want to live in my life all the time. What if I just started with that emotion here, in the middle of all of the messy? If I start with that emotion and that energy, emotion is just energy and motion. So if I start with that emotion and that energy, how will it change how I go through life? How I look at my opportunities instead of challenges, right? How do I start defining things differently whenever I choose to be in that energy first?
So, am I hearing you right when we're talking about, and I want to get back to the messy part too. So, and I love the word unbothered. I have three things. I have to organize my thoughts. Sometimes I said this earlier. Sometimes I wish like GPT could get inside my brain like the second. I know it can to a point, but then sort out like my next 5 seconds worth of what I'm trying to say. Um, so we had somebody drop in the chat, love unbothered, be a little delusional. Like that was the comment. And that's a really interesting comment because it's true. So there's the messy part. But when you're talking about setting a goal, so what I'm hearing you say is we set these goals, and our brain knows that we can actually achieve those goals, right? Like it's something that's there, or it wouldn't have even been dropped in as a potential goal. So if I say I want to set a goal, by the way, for anybody watching this, this is not actually a goal of mine to run a marathon. I actually cannot set that goal because I cannot physically do that anymore. But that would be something. Now, for me, that would not be a goal I would set because my brain would be like, yeah, you can't do that. So don't even, like, you can't physically do that. However, you're saying as we set these goals, it's okay to set these big goals because our brain is dropping in saying that is a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. It's life is all about mirrors, reflections, and symbols. And so we can't see something in someone else that doesn't exist in us. And
Say
so
more.
if we see someone's behavior and we say that means this, it's because somewhere inside of us we have experienced that behavior meaning that, or based on our beliefs and values that that's what that means. So we've experienced it, or we would do it if we were in that position. And so we are imposing our beliefs of what is possible on other people's behavior. But the same thing with our goals is this is us looking at the outside world and how other people have achieved things that we interpret as this emotion. And then we say, our unconscious mind says you could do that because in the background, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, and you see that person and you see some of the things that they've done to get there. And your brain says, oh, well, let's set that goal so you can feel that way because I know you can achieve that. It is possible. The goal wouldn't exist if it wasn't something that was possible for you.
Interesting. Interesting. I want to get back to the messy stuff for a minute. So, like, things come up in our lives as founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, whatever the case might be, right? And it's the personal side of our lives. And I think we're getting in a space where we vocalize it a little bit more, which is great. We raise our hands to say, yeah, stuff's not so great right now behind the scenes. Like, this is what we're talking about here. So it may be you get a diagnosis totally unexpected and it changes the course of the way you show up the next 24 hours plus, right? So, I mean, how do you manage stuff like that? Like, how do you put on that brave face, but you also know that you're working through some of this? Like, unbothered feels, when it's really close to home, unbothered feels like a word that would be nice to say, but I'm actually really, really bothered.
Okay. So I love that you bring up, you just brought stories. I love that you brought up the diagnosis, right? Because a little over a year ago, I was supposed to go in for a surgery and I had to have, I'm like open book. So I'm just going to be very transparent here. I had to have a mammogram. And in the mammogram, it came back saying that it was, what was it? It wasn't inconclusive, but it was, what is the word that they use for it? Abnormal. It was abnormal. And so I couldn't get the surgery until I had to have a ultrasound. No, I did the mammogram, I did the ultrasound, and now they wanted to do an MRI. And so then I go in for the MRI, and that comes back the night before I'm supposed to go into surgery. And so this was like, I don't know, like Tuesday or Wednesday, a week and a half before the surgery, I get the mammogram and ultrasound results. Then it takes a couple days to try to get on the schedule for the MRI. I am hosting workshops and other people's platforms in the middle of this. I'm in the middle of a move from Beverly Hills to Scottsdale, Arizona. And I have my retreat coming up that I'm trying to fill seats for at my retreat. I've got all of this stuff going on. And to put context around it, my grandmother passed away from breast cancer. She had a mastectomy, and she passed away ultimately from breast cancer. So all of this came in, and I could have spiraled into all of the what ifs and all of the, oh my gosh. And instead, what do I want to feel? What do I want the results to be? So so going back to the person's comment in the comments is like, be a little delusional. Like, if I imagined the best outcome that it could be for me, because in between, I don't know. It doesn't exist yet. And so in between, what would the best outcome be? And so there's a tool that I use that is like, go out into the future. If you said the best outcome that it could possibly be, what would that outcome be? Now, if you took that and made that into a 15-second movie clip of the completion of the best that it could be, and you said, what would that look like? So imagine you got Steven Spielberg, he's recording that moment in your life. It's in slow motion. What's going on? What's happening? All of the energy in your body. What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you tasting, smelling? Like the entire thing. What is that very intense moment of just, is it relief? Is it joy? Is it celebration? Find the energy and the emotions. Now take it and pause. And now take that and shrink it down into a picture, a still frame picture of that moment. And now imagine if you went out to your future and you float out into your future and you just take that picture. And I do an exercise with people where we actually put it into a clear beach ball. And then you breathe, you get into that energy and you breathe into that beach ball and blow it up. And then you throw it down into your timeline like it is done. And you just allow it to be there and integrate with you. And you operate from the knowing that it's going to work out in the best way that it possibly could. And now you've created a circuitry in your neural system to say, look for the opportunities for it to work out that way. We know that energy goes where our attention, or energy flows where our attention goes, right? So if we put our attention on all of the worst case scenarios and all the bad things that can happen and all of that stuff, that is where our energy is going to go. If we put our attention on the best way that it could possibly turn out, then it's going to put our attention on all of the opportunities to change the outcome. I liken it to Seabiscuit, right? Movies. I love movies. I talk in movie language all the time. I love because movies are, again, telling stories that allow us to see what's possible. But whenever you look at Seabiscuit, you look at horse races, they put blinders on the horses, right? So that the only thing that they see is this path forward. They don't see what's happening in the field around them, right? And we do this with our energy. We do it most of the time focused on the negative bias.
Oh, I was just going to bring that up to you. How easy is it for us to go down that rabbit hole? I do it. When like something's happening, I'm going down the rabbit hole with a diagnosis as your example. And I'm like, oh, great. So I probably won't be around to see my grandchild be born. Like, wait, what? How did that happen so fast?
Yeah. Yeah. And then how does that feel? And this is something that I ask myself, like I allow, if I go into that worst case scenario, right? If I go into that, I allow myself to feel what it feels like in my body. And then again, do I want to feel that? Because someone once told me, anxiety is just your brain's way of telling you that you're focusing on what you don't want to happen. So if you thought of anxiety more as a signal than a state of being, then if you looked at it as a signal, then could you take that as a trigger or an opportunity to say, oh, well, what am I focusing on? Oh, you're right. What would it look like if I were focusing on what I wanted to happen? How would it feel if I focused on what I wanted to happen? And it is a training your brain. And right, first we have to talk about your nervous system, right? Because whenever your nervous system is spiraling, so then this is where we have tools to regulate your nervous system so that then you can even get into a state where you can even begin to explore, because it sounds great and it sounds easy whenever I say it, because I've been doing it for 6 years. It's been an accumulation of learning different tools and stuff over the last 6 years. But if you looked at my life 7 years ago, I was constantly focused on the negative. I was constantly focused on what I didn't want to happen. But to finish the story about the mammogram and the MRI, the truth is that I really didn't want to do the surgery right then, because I was in the middle of a move, trying to fill seats for my retreat, and I didn't want to do the mammogram. And whenever I recognized that I was starting to spiral, and I stopped and I asked myself, like, one, can you be sure that this is true? Is this true? Do you know it's true? Like going into all of the, oh my gosh, this is the thing. I'm 40 something years old. I'm going to die of breast cancer, just like my grandmother, and all of those things. Instead, I was like, one, I can't know that it's true. All I know is that it's inconclusive. And we are like the last hour, it's like 6 o'clock at night, the day before the MRI, or before the surgery is supposed to happen. And I haven't gotten the go ahead so I've been on pins and needles for like, I don't know, 3 days waiting for the results to come back. My doctor calls me and I'm like, oh, that's never a good sign, because we're really good friends. He would text me just to say all clear if it were good. So I'm like, brace myself, okay? Breathing into it, I answer the phone. So breathing, that's just for everybody listening, breathe, always breathe before you act. So I took a deep breath, I answered the phone, and then he told me, and he's like, it doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it says good. And then right here at the end, it says inconclusive. And I was like, oh, so what does that mean? And he's like, biopsy, this. He's like, it could be nothing. And I said, I'm like, just give it to me straight. He's like, or you could have breast cancer. And I'm like, okay. And so I get off the phone and I'm like, should I do the surgery? Are you calling off the surgery? What's going on? And he's like, no, let's call off the surgery. And I'm like, okay. And I felt this huge relief of no surgery. And then then for a minute, I started to go into what if going into all the stuff with my grandmother, right? And then I thought about it for a minute and I'm like, I do believe that our emotions show up in our body, and I've done studies on how emotions show up in our body, and I honestly think that so much of my grandmother's pain and what she went through had so much to do with storing emotions in her body. And I was like, do I even believe that this is hereditary? And I was like, I don't even believe this is hereditary. I'm just going to release this right now. I'm just going to say, no, this isn't my problem right now. And I'm going to go a step further and say, what if this was actually a manifestation so that I didn't have to have the surgery? Because I tried to call it off and the doctors wouldn't let me call it off. They wouldn't let me postpone it because we were too close to the surgery and they'd already had the surgery center all scheduled and everything. I was like, what if I actually manifested this so that I wouldn't have to do the surgery. Okay, am I being delusional? My husband probably thought I was being very delusional, but I'm going to hold on to that. So then I go and I do a more in-depth ultrasound. I do the biopsy, and the doctor's like, "There's nothing. It's absolutely nothing." And I'm like, "So what's next?" And she's like, "Well, we can do an MRI in 6 months from now. You can do the surgery. We can do a biopsy during the surgery, or we can just do the biopsy now." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. So if I do nothing, you're still going to want to do the MRI in 6 months?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, so that means that everyone's going to hold the energy that there could be something wrong with me for 6 months, like including myself, right? Like, no, just do the biopsy right now and let's just be done with it." And she said she called them the shut up biopsy. It's the biopsy that she knows is going to turn out totally clear and clean, but it's so that everybody else will shut up, so that we don't hold the energy of the possibility of the bad thing happening. And so we did it. And then the next day she calls me and I'm like, "Tell me some good news." And she's like, "You are so clear." She's like, "You're totally fine." And I could have, that was a 2-week period of my life while I was in the middle of all of these other things. I could have spiraled into and just held that energy the whole time of the worry of all of the worst case scenarios. And it literally did turn out the absolute best way that it possibly could have, like literally. Because it could have turned out that I had the surgery, but that would not have, at my point in life, that actually would not have been the best way it could have turned out,
Yeah.
right? The best
Right.
way that it turned out was actually that it got delayed, that there was a slight little scare, and that my schedule ended up working out the way that I needed it to, so that I could remain more in flow with everything I was doing.
You've given us a lot of tools to work with, as you always do. And thank you for sharing your personal story. And I'm glad it turned out in the best way for you, for sure. And sometimes we don't know what that is as we're going through that. We don't know what that best way, but if we don't even give ourselves a chance, then for sure it's not going to happen, right? I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing. So when I think about that, and I think about, as entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs, we navigate this stuff quite frequently. And I feel like I've gotten better at it. It's always a work in progress for sure. Where do people start? Like, what would you say? Like, let's say something hits my inbox or hits my text messaging or a phone call or something, news event. It could be anything, really. We're in a world right now where news events, can be triggering. Triggering is not always a bad word. I understand that, but they do cause emotions on all kinds of fronts. How do we navigate that? Like, what's a good place to start if we haven't been practicing this at all, or we're just starting to?
Yeah. So breathing is always the first place where I would say to start. There is a process where, breathing into your heart space, slowing down your breathing. Sometimes it helps to put your hand there to allow yourself to feel your chest expand as you do it, and just slowing down your breathing. What this does is it creates a clear, coherent line from your brain to your chest, to your heart. And believe it or not, we think that our brain controls everything, so it would stand to reason that our brain is sending more signals to our heart so that our heart operates and pumps blood, right? Than our heart communicating to our brain, but that is not true. Our heart, actually, in our heart is electromagnetic, right? Our heart actually helps create the energy field around us. And so our heart is actually sending more signals to our brain than our brain sending signals to our heart. So our brain functions better when our heart is calm. And so if we start by feeding the energy and the oxygen to our heart, and as we breathe, think about a positive or replenishing emotion that you would rather feel. Whether or not it's peace, whether or not it's love, connection, calmness, relief, whatever the word is. And then especially if you can think of a memory, a time in the past where you have felt that before to connect to. Like this is a phrase that we use called anchoring. it is great to have a series of positive or replenishing. I hesitate to use the word positive because then that polarizes emotions, and they are either depleting or replenishing. There's technically no such thing as a bad emotion or a good emotion. They're all signals. But if you think of replenishing emotions and make a list, do a little bit of work ahead of time, make a list of 5 major replenishing emotions that feel good to you, and then find 3 times in your life where you have felt that emotion before. And so these can now become your go-tos whenever you need to calm yourself, when you need to regulate your nervous system. Now you have done the homework ahead of time to say, here's what I can drop into right now. Because your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. It will create the same chemistry in your body, whether or not it is something you're experiencing right now or something that you are imagining. So if we drop into a memory of something good, then our body will respond. And so this creates a better environment for us to then choose how we want to feel about something. And so the first place to start is the breathing, doing the breathing, creating the connection between your heart and your head, because now this helps how you think about things and then where you are focusing your attention and energy.
That's magical, as you like to say, or as we've said often, that's magical. Such good information. I would love to continue this conversation because I think there's so many places where this shows up for us, and to be caught off guard or to be surprised by it, right? And understanding how to navigate it just 1% better than, or, progress, right, than the last time, because it is a ripple effect. So where can we get more information from you, Rebekah, or how do we stay connected to you as you remind us of these techniques? Where would you encourage us to follow you, or, all the standard questions, but, really seek out your guidance and advice specifically when it comes to those times where we need it more than ever.
Yeah. So my Instagram is Rebekah_Hogan, and I'm sure there will be show notes that show how I spell my name and everything. And then RebekahHogan.com, you can find all of the different programs and stuff that I offer. But on Instagram, I'll drop in with little stories, little processes. Sign up for my newsletter. I send a newsletter every single week. Today I shared a process in my newsletter of how to reset your energy. And it was exactly for this exact same process. And so if you're not on my newsletter list and you want that, just leave a message or shoot me a DM, ask me for it. I'll send you the reset process. On using water. I've been on a big kick with water because I just recently did a floating sound bath, and just really understanding the power of the elements and how we can use those also for our stuff. So I love just diving into all the different ways that we can just really help manage our energy, because I know my story turned out fine. It turned out great. But I know that there are stories that don't turn out great, that you do get the bad news. Mm-hmm. And how do you navigate the bad news too? Mm-hmm. Because it does happen. And these tools do apply to that scenario too. And having more of those helps you navigate that situation in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm. And you're so right. And we did have another comment in our chat, how our brain is easily manipulated, which is so interesting, right?
Yeah. And I know we're already over what we normally do on time, but I just remember our brain can be easily manipulated for a positive outcome or a negative outcome. Mm-hmm. And we can choose to be the manipulators of our brain if we want to, if we start learning the tools so that we can really master our inner voice and our energy, so that then we can choose how we manipulate our brain instead of leaving it to society and all of the stuff that shows up in our feed.
Amazing. Well, and on that goal setting that we talked about early on, or setting those goals to achieve it, and on that mind or the heart head connection, we have a free workshop for anyone who is watching and listening today. We have a 3 secrets to sell out your holiday season. So let's make that one of our goals for all of the product-based businesses that I serve on a consistent basis. Next week, we have that, and it's designed to give you the exact strategies you need to maximize your sales before year's end. The link will also be in our chat to save your seat. But as Rebekah said, you can set that. If you put that in as a goal, then you actually are capable of achieving that. We can use all of Rebekah's guidance to get us there and actually see this as a work in progress. So thank you so much, Rebekah, for joining and giving us the gift of your time today. I know that is the only non-renewable resource we constantly have to navigate. And this is really what No Gatekeeping is about: real strategies, real stories, as Rebekah shared with us, and real tools that help founders lead with intention. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next, and we'll see you on another episode of No Gatekeeping. Thank you very much.
Awesome.